Hey everyone, welcome to the Wild Chronicles podcast, where every episode we look at what God's doing locally and globally to find ourselves in greater awe of who He is. And here I am, Zach Roble, coming at you from our 28th church, besides the one Illinois church, so 28th church in Waukesha. I'm here for the Celebrate Church tour, guys. Here I am again. I decided last week going to Ottawa Park was such a vibe that I decided to come here again. It is still completely abandoned. I don't know what it is with this park being completely abandoned on Sunday afternoons, but I'm loving it because it's basically just my own park. Yeah. Also, I think it's very possible that last time I was here, I left my paint markers here. And so part of coming back today was like, I want to see if I still can find them. But I knew the odds were low that like my paint markers would still be on the ground here a week later. So I might have to buy new paint markers for my car. But it has been fun painting, encouraging things on my car lately. But anyways, that being said, yeah, here we are. 28th week of the church tour. Today we went to RiverGlen Church, the Pewaukee Campus, which is actually a church plant campus. And it was cool. The guy mentioned in his sermon today that the Pewaukee Campus was planted in 2018. So like just 7 years ago, the main campus of RiverGlen planted this new base. And it's actually crazy, like the parking lot this place is in. Like it's surrounded by like a laser tag place and like a go-kart place. And I'm like, dang, like that's a place to build a church. I've never seen a church next to like a laser tag place before. So very unique location in that sense. It is a non-denominational church. So it's very people-oriented, as non-denominational churches are usually. So as I drove in, there was all the people in the parking lot with the little like welcome signs, you belong here, all those cute signs. That's a very trademark thing of non-denom churches, is really like trying to welcome people and trying to get people in a chance to serve no matter what it is. Like even if it's just holding up a sign in the parking lot, like making people feel like they have a part to play. So that was really cool coming in. Then as I walked into the door, this guy named Jason and this guy named Bill were like welcoming me into the sanctuary. They had communion cups. They had the little ones where you get the bread and the wine. They come in the package together. So I was able to get both of those things and take them in, take the little thing for whenever communion would happen later. And I'll just spoil it right now. It was a grape juice church. They didn't give you like little wafer and wine packages. I feel like most of the time when it's like those combined packages, they do grape juice. But yeah, it was a grape juice church, not a wine church. But cool that they were doing communion. And what I later found out is they actually said that this is a church that they prioritize communion every single week, which in non-denom churches, that's not usually the case. Like I feel like most non-denom churches tend to have like communion once a month, but they mentioned specifically after their worship time that here they are so serious about, we need to do communion every single week because we need to remind ourselves like what this is all about. It's because of Jesus' body and because of Jesus' blood. And, that's something that's very normally emphasized in traditional churches, like Catholic churches. Communion is like the main point of the service, and they will never have a week where they don't do it. But like here at a non-denom church, to see that they're also like, we want to keep doing communion every week was encouraging to see that they prioritize it. And they said that it's open to anyone who believes in the Lord, so there's no like rites you have to go through to get it. So really cool that they just open that up. So I come in, this is like a full band worship team. The room is like black with like lights and everything. I sat in the second to the front row. I also noticed church very multi-generational here. It was definitely more younger people than some of the more traditional denominations that I've been to, which was encouraging to see that there was like an audience of people from all generations coming to this church. And again, like for a church plant, it's pretty big. Like, like I said, like this is not the main campus of RiverGlen. The main one is in the Waukesha area. And this one's called RiverGlen Pewaukee. It's technically still Waukesha too, if you look up the address, but it's like closer to Pewaukee than the other campuses. And I just love that they planted this new like area next to like the laser tag place. Like that's crazy to me. They're like going so close to these exciting things, because it like gives this idea that like church is also an exciting thing. Like it's another thing among all the exciting things in this parking lot, So I like that they're all kind of combined in that way. But yeah, so that being said, then the service started. They sang a lot of songs. The ones that stood out to me the most were Holy Forever. I love the song Holy Forever. It's a song I sing in France and in Japan. So whenever I hear that song, it reminds me of like, it sings about 1,000 generations falling down in worship. Like everybody's singing worship to God. And like in the back of my mind, I'm like hearing the Japanese version, I'm hearing the French version, then just thinking about all the different languages of people that are singing to the Lord. Like around the world in the same time we are, or even in our city. Like I said, there's like over 50 churches like just in this region that like are all meeting on Sunday mornings and giving glory to God. And so like, it really feels powerful to like come in to this united song, not just with people of this generation, but of all generations, to praise the Lord. And then they also sang this song called King of Kings, which was actually sung at the Episcopal church I was at last week, which is a way more traditional denomination, but they sang it during communion there, and then they sang it here as well. So this song is like has a lot on it right now, but it's the one that goes, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one, God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. And the lady actually, before she sang it here, was talking about how that song is such a powerful song because it's like a declaration song, and it basically tells the entire story of the world and Jesus coming and dying and raising and the church being born, and like what we're doing now, like we're continuing to just keep this truth and declaring it. And that's something I noticed about all the songs they sang today, is like they really like made it direct, like this is the gospel. Like for anyone that's just coming to church for the first time, they're very direct songs that just tell the story in a song. Like the King of Kings song is like that. And then like they also sing this song at the end of the service that was all about just like, it was actually just based on John 3:16 and how God so loved the world that he gave, the son that will save us. And like, all of that like simple truth is like what the church is like, you can see is kind of like founded on. It's founded on this idea of like simple truth to get people into knowing Jesus. And a lot of the time, I think that's what non-denom churches do really well, is they're really good at entry level to the faith, versus like if you go to a more traditional denomination and you've never been in a church before, it's a lot harder to get into it because like they have so many traditions and customs and cultures that are not really relatable to somebody outside of a church circle. But like in a non-denominational church, they really like try to make the gospel be presented in a very forward way, where it's like we're gonna focus on the main key pieces and let those be the things that are in our songs and in our service, so that like it can immediately start to mean something to you, even if you don't know all the deep theological things or the specific Bible passages. So it's really cool that they do that. So anyways, after that we had that was when they did communion after that song. And it was cool because like they just had a moment of silence, really, like while the worship team was going off stage. Like there was basically like 3 or 4 minutes where it was just like take your communion at your own pace. Like everyone had their cup, you can take the bread, you can take the wine, and just like 3 or 4 minutes, everyone in the room just kind of does it at their own speed, at their own pace, as they're like reflecting with the Lord about the value of like his sacrifice. So that was really cool. Then they had the guy that actually greeted me at the door, Jason. He went up to the front and he was like, yeah, I'm the campus pastor here at RiverGlen. And I was like, oh gosh, like, that's so funny. There's been so many times on this church tour where like I've accidentally greeted the pastor at the door and I just thought he was some random Joe. And then like the service starts and I'm like, oh, that was the pastor. So it's so funny that this keeps happening. But because this is a satellite campus and like a plant of the main RiverGlen church, it's one of the churches where instead of having the pastor preach on Sunday, they have a feed of what's happening at the other campus that we watch. So it's like you kind of just watch like a video of what's happening, what the main pastor's preaching about, which there's a lot of like controversy about that. Like some people really don't like going to a church where it's just like you're just going to watch a video because you could do that in your living room anyway, right? But the reason that churches like this will tend to do that is because they want unity of vision, even in different locations. Like even the church that I consider my home church right now, Bridge Church in Waukesha, like they have a campus in Oconomowoc, and the Oconomowoc campus will just stream the messages that are preached at the Waukesha campus a lot of the time. And it's to get like this unified vision. We're all going through the same series. We're all going through the same focuses. It's kind of like the same idea of like how all the Catholic churches in the world like follow the same scriptures every week, except they're trying to create that within like their own church body of like we're all hearing the same messages every week, which is cool in some sense. I think that obviously like you want each location to have its own unique identity too, which is why they still have a pastor there, like the Jason guy. And I think that there are also, I know for Bridge Oconomowoc and stuff, like there are weeks where like they'll have live preaching there, but most of the time it will just be the feed so that everybody can be unified and all of that stuff. So it's really unique. Satellite churches are something that I've only gone to a few times, but they're really interesting. And I think like the one thing that they do benefit from when they're streaming something is like they obviously can like, get the best presentation, like really make sure the message is clear, versus live preaching can be a little more messy. So really cool, really cool. So the message they were preaching was out of the series they're doing right now, out of Galatians, called When Your Way Isn't Working. Isn't that relatable in life? Our way often doesn't work, right? Because we want things to go one way, but they don't. And they had this little graphic, this maze, and they had an animation where this guy was just like running around in circles in the maze. It was like, I can't get out. It's like, maybe you should ask God how to get out, you know? And I feel like that's like what we do in life sometimes when we're struggling, is we just tend to wander in circles of our own sin patterns or our own ideas of what we think is right without actually asking God what he thinks is right or what is right. So that's very relatable for sure. Now, I also want to say that I think this is like a very big trademark thing of non-denominational churches too, is that they tend to operate more in series as opposed to like the more traditional denominations I've been to. Like they do the 3 reading structure, right? Like most of the more traditional denominations will do like, we read one reading, we read another reading, we read the gospel reading, and then we have a message on the readings. Versus like non-denom churches, or more like less than those like traditional denominations, like they often will do these like more thematic based messages, which is good in its own unique way. Like it's not as straight out of the Bible, but it's like these themes that you apply based on the Bible. And like I was saying earlier, like that makes it more approachable for young people. It's why we see more young people in these type of churches as opposed to the ones that are more like just read the straight Bible for the whole service. So I think that is really interesting to see as well. So that being said, the message, When Your Way Isn't Working, he was talking a lot about the future, and he was talking about how like people years ago were predicting like the future would have flying cars and teleporting, and we would like already be to Pluto. Like, you know, people were predicting all these big things and developments that didn't ever happen. And sometimes in our own lives with the Lord, like we can predict that we're going to be somewhere that we aren't right now. And like, you know, he was asking the question, like, where did you think you would be right now in life, like 10 years ago? And like I wrote in my notes here, like I thought I would be debt free. I thought I would be married. I thought I would be overseas already doing missions, right? Like those are all things I thought like would have already happened by now in my life, but they haven't happened now. And then he was asking, well, like, how did you get to where you are right now? Not where you thought you would be. And like, how do you get to where you want to be? And he was saying like all the ways, the thing you do for anything you want in life is you do it one decision at a time. So every one decision you make either makes you get closer or further away. And like, as I was like talking to the Lord about those 3 things for me, like the reason I'm not debt free right now is because like I prioritized other things and gave my money to other things. And sometimes it was missions things and sometimes it was selfish things, right? But like the money I had saved up to pay off my debt, I used for these other things. And so now I'm having to pay off my debt again, right? So there's benefit in that, and that like I used some of that money to do better things. And there's other times where like I was just like stupid with my money, right? But like, you know, so like there was good decisions that made me not get where I thought I wanted to be. And then there was bad decisions that made me get where I thought not where I thought I wanted to be. And like why I'm not married right now is I just like wrote down because like no girl was like suited for me to pursue so far. And like, you know, like obviously there's part of me that was like, I wish I was married now. But then like, you know, every time like a girl comes up that's like a possibility, like I have to ask the Lord and like ask myself, like, is this something I'm willing to pursue? And I like intentionally chose to not pursue it in all these different instances because like it just wasn't the right person. So even though like I thought I would be married, like I made like the intentional decision I don't want to right now. And then like overseas, like, you know, the reason I'm not overseas right now is because like I really felt the Lord calling me back to my hometown. And like, you know, even though in my own human flesh I just want to be there, I want to be in the nations long term, and I hope one day it happens. Like right now I'm here in Waukesha out of obedience to his call and like trusting and stepping with faith that like he has called me to stay in my hometown for this season and this time, to believe for something to happen here. But it's hard to believe there's something's going to happen here sometimes. And so like he was reading this verse in Galatians 6:7-9, where it says like, let us not tire of doing good. And it says, we will reap what we sow if we do not give up. And the whole rest of the message really like focused on that theme of like reaping and sowing, and like how giving up is like the one thing that the enemy wants us to do, and that will keep us from ever discovering like the other side of our dream or our fulfillment or what we want to see God do, is when we give up on it before we see the fullness. And like, you know, like even just like being honest right now, like there are moments like where I want to give up on like the commitments to my dreams of like being married or overseas, like, you know, there's sometimes, or like being, like I want to be married to someone like that really knows the Lord and loves the Lord. But there are days where I'm just like, I could just give up. I could just go to the bar and have sex with someone and we could just start that lifestyle. And like, I consider it sometimes when I'm like, it's just too hard to wait. I just want to give up. Or like going overseas. Like there are times where I'm just like, like I could just like give up. Like nothing's really happened in Waukesha in a year. What are the odds anything's going to happen in the next 4 years? Like I could just, I could buy a ticket to another country today and I could probably make life work in a different context, in a different culture, because I've done it before on my small trips and I could do it like in a big trip if I wanted. Like, like there's part of me that's like I could take into my control and sacrifice these dreams that God has like put on my heart to hold to and just do whatever, But like it says like, let us not tire of doing good, and we will reap if we do not give up. Like if I give up, obviously nothing's gonna happen. But like there's something you have to do is you have to wait. You really have to wait if you want to see things happen. And the other thing of the statement of like you reap what you sow, like he was saying that sometimes that statement is used as a warning of like, oh, like don't do bad things because you'll sow bad things. But it can also be a promise, because if you're doing good things, you can be expectant that God is gonna bring fruit in your life. And like at first when he said that, I was like a little skeptical, because I was like, in the Bible, just doing good doesn't always mean you get good. Because like Job is obviously like the most common example, right? Like Job lived an almost perfect life and then like he lost everything just because the enemy was just like, I just want to mess with him, But the thing is though, like Job, in the end of Job, does receive everything double and get everything restored. It's just like he loses everything in the process. But if he quit on God in the losing, then he never would have gained it back. It's like in the lose, like we're all gonna lose. Jesus, like if Jesus like just decided like I'm just gonna stay in hell, like I'm not gonna rise from the dead, I'm just gonna give up, like, or even like if he didn't want to die on the cross, like if he just saw all these people mocking him and was just like, if he just like sent fire from heaven to burn them all to death, like, like he didn't have to stay in love through the whole process to get like reunited with us and to save us and to bring us back into a relationship with him. But he could have been like, this relationship isn't worth it, like I'm gonna give up, and we can also have that attitude of like giving up. But like the powerful thing about Jesus is he stayed through. He died the full death on the cross so we could fully rise. And like we want to pursue our dreams fully, or pursue the things that God's put on our heart fully and see fruit in them, like we have to fully die to our other desires that might say like, oh, like maybe this isn't worth it. And that's hard. It's hard to believe that it's still worth it when you fail and fail and fail sometimes, or it feels like you're just having to wait forever, but God can provide. So then he also like was sharing these different things of like, you reap where you sow. So if you're sowing in the spirit, you'll reap in the spirit. If you sow into like the flesh and your own desires, you're going to reap like fleshly consequences of that. He also says you reap more than you sow, because in the Bible, like, it says that like when you, like he was using the analogy of corn actually. He was like, like one kernel of corn provides like two cobs of corn that have 1,200 kernels. Like, and that's crazy that like one little kernel can provide that much more. And in the same way, like if we plant like a little bit of faith, he can do great things with it. Like it made me think a lot about the verse, like with faith as big as a mustard seed, you can do great things. And that's been like a big thing on my heart lately, because I feel like I've been at that point recently where I have such little faith. Like I'm at that mustard seed. Like it's really shrunk in the last year. Like I came back to Waukesha last year and I was like, God's going to do amazing things here. It's going to be awesome. And like in the last year, like everything's died except like one little seed where I'm like, maybe something good will happen eventually, but I don't know if I even believe it. Like, and that's where I'm at right now. But the thing is, God can take that little bit of almost not believing, but still kind of believing, and like do something there. Like it's just that little mustard seed. He's capable of doing more with than we would ever ask, think, or imagine. And that's like an encouraging thing to remember in the moments where we can shame ourselves. I can shame myself for like not having enough faith. Like I feel like I don't believe enough. I feel like I'm falling short of the full faith that I could have. But God is still faithful, even in those moments when I'm not. And even when my faith is so small, he's so good. And then the last one, well, there was actually two more. I didn't write down the fourth one. I was like not paying attention at that point. But the third one was you reap after you sow. And this is like the thing about waiting. And he said success lags. And that was like really interesting to me as well. Like where he was talking about like just, this is the thing about waiting, where it's like, you don't always see the fruit right after you do the thing. Like you have to wait an extended period of time to see it all out of the time. And that's why you can't give up. And that's where he was sharing also about Thomas Edison, the guy who invented the light bulb. And like he was saying that like the most greatest weakness is giving up. And he was also talking about how like inventing the light bulb, he had like so many problems and issues, and instead of saying like he failed 1,000 times in inventing the light bulb, he said there was like a 1,000-step process to get to the light bulb, and that's like a different way of looking at it. Is like instead of seeing all the things that aren't achieving your goal as like failures and like delays, like they're like part of the process, and like, I can look at myself right now and I could see like, oh, I'm not debt free, I'm not married, I'm not overseas, and I could see those as failures, or I could see like all the things that led to me not having any of those three things yet in my life, like as a part of the process. And like, I think like very intentionally the Lord has made it where I'm not debt free yet, and I'm not married yet, and I'm not overseas yet, even if in my flesh I'm just like, I just want to be all those things right now, or like the other thing I didn't write down there is like I want to see a prayer room in Waukesha, right? Like, I would have loved if we were already making more progress on that than just like having it be an idea in my head and like an actual space for it, right? But like all those different things like are only going to happen one decision at a time. And yeah, even like I think like if I would have had like a prayer room right when I came back to Waukesha last year, I probably never start I probably never start worshiping on the streets if I already have a place to worship, And so I think like the Lord like let me birth WOW right now, and let me engage with him in these other ways right now in the absence of a prayer room. And like when I get it, I hope I get it. There's that mustard seed of faith that one day. But if we ever do get a house of prayer in Waukesha, like it'll be so rewarding to finally get there after praying for it for all this time and hoping for it and wanting to see it. And same goes for like being debt free or married or overseas. Like all my dreams, they can happen if I keep that faith and I don't give up. And that's the word that really the whole message was about today, is just like don't give up. And there are times to give up, like don't get me wrong, there's other scriptural things to like sacrifice and like laying down your desires to pick up something new that God has for you. And I think that, and there's like so much nuance, because like sometimes God will tell you to give up your full desire, sometimes he'll tell you to give up your timing for the desire, maybe he'll do it in a different timing, and then sometimes he'll tell you to hold on to it and don't give up on this desire. So it's very nuanced. I personally feel like all four of those desires I have right now are still worth holding on to. But if the Lord like eventually told me like, oh, you're never going to go overseas, or oh, you're never going to get married, like I would have to like submit that to him and be like, that's okay, Lord. I'm okay with that as well. And that's trust, and that's love, and that's knowing that God has what's best for us, even if we have this other idea, right? And so, but the thing is, if we give up, it's definitely not going to happen. So if we keep having hope, then there's a chance. And if we keep making decisions to lead towards those things that we dream of and that we want to see God do, then there's hope that it can happen, right? And it's so interesting that the idea of you reap what you sow is biblical, right? Because like a lot of the time I don't think of that as biblical. I think of it as like a human thing of like, oh, like people are trying to do things in their own power. But like, God also gave us strength to, when we do things, like things do happen. Like he gave us, we're made in his image. And so like he made it where like if we put active steps towards a goal, like we can achieve that goal because he empowered us and he made us human where we can achieve the things that we sow into, which is cool. It's really cool to know that that is, like, again, like that's where that reap what you sow thing can be a promise instead of a warning. Like instead of it's like, oh, it's like when you do a bad thing, you're going to get a bad thing. It's like, no, like when you really put heart into a good thing, then the Lord will reward that. And it's not like he'll always reward it instantly, but he will reward it eventually, whether that's on this side of eternity or in eternal life in the future, right? So there's a lot of nuance. Obviously, it's not always like so easy. And like I know that with all those four specific desires I've said, like where it's like I want to be debt free, I want to be married, I want to be overseas, I want to have a house of prayer. I don't have any of those, but I do have Jesus, and I have him in the waiting, and that's what gives me hope, right? So after that, the service ended with one more song. That was the one about John 3:16 that I was telling about. Yeah, and then he said this one phrase which I really liked. It said, "You can handle your now when you know what's next." So like it's easier for us to deal with the struggles we're facing now if we have hope and faith and confidence in God that what's next is going to be worth the suffering we face. So like the days where I suffer, feeling like, oh, I have so much debt, or oh, like I'm not married, or oh, I wish I was overseas, or oh, like I wish I had a house of prayer, like, I can handle that suffering when I believe and I hope that God has those rewards on the other side of my faithfulness to him in this season when I am faithful, because there are times I'm not faithful, but even when I'm faithless, he's still faithful, which is crazy. So good stuff, guys. And I encourage any of you guys, like, those are my specific dreams, but I would just say, like, for any of you that have something that you're struggling to handle right now, like, look to what's next. Look to what God has spoken over your life or spoken over your eternity. If you don't find hope in this life, like, believe for the next life, like, that there's hope, even if it's not right in front of you right now, right? So that's good. And then that's basically it. And so then after that, I went to the little desk, and they gave me a free water bottles for first-time guests. They also have a breakfast that they do for new people as well that I won't be able to go to because it's on a Sunday, and I have to go to another church on that Sunday because we got to hit them all. But if I was going to plug into RiverGlen, like, you know, it's cool they have, like, active steps where it's like they want to make you feel seen. They want to make you feel known. They want to make you feel like a part of the community, not just somebody who shows up, which is significant. That's really huge to, like, make the members be more than just attenders, but, like, real family members. I love that they have that. And they were also sharing about these 2 nonprofit opportunities that they have, or uno momento. So these are other cool things about the church. So they're doing this Night of Stars prom in July, and apparently they do it every year, and it's for special needs kids. And it's from 6 to 8:30 p.m. on July 18th. And on that day, they invite, like, special needs kids to this special prom night where it's like every single person there gets crowned a king or a queen to, like, realize their value. So it's like a whole night of, like, basically showing these people that are usually neglected or looked down upon or outcast that they have value. So I love that they're a part of that activity. They also have on July 12th from 8:30 to 4, they're doing this thing where they're helping build a house with Habitat for Humanity. And they're, like, doing a volunteer opportunity for anyone in the church who wants to help build this house. And apparently they do this a lot. They'll, like, book time slots with Habitat to volunteer and to, like, just give church members, like, a hand in doing something bigger than themselves. So, like, we're going to help build a house. And, like, are they going to build that whole house in that day? Probably not. But they're going to, like, have a hand in it. And when that house is built and a family lives there someday, they can say, like, wow, like, I spent a day of my life investing in, like, what that house would become, like, through hard labor. And then probably also they pray over it when they're doing that. I would imagine that the Lord would bless that home whoever moves into it. And so really cool. I don't know what day of the week July 12th is, but I usually work at 8:30, so I probably can't go. But it does sound like a fun thing and a cool opportunity to make an impact. And then the last thing was, they said that at their other campus in Waukesha, they're actually working right now on planting a free park in the church. They're going to build a park in the church, an indoor park that's going to be open to the community all week long for people to come and just play at the park at the church. And I was like, dang, that sounds awesome. And I haven't been to the Waukesha RiverGlen yet, so it'll be really cool later in this church tour when I get to go there and see, like, maybe the park will be done or maybe they'll still be working on it. But, like, I love that there's a place in Waukesha, like, what they said here is, like, that's going to be open all week. It's just a park for people to go with their families and go and spend time with God. And that park could become a place I go a lot. Like, I could see myself going to that indoor park very often to experience God in the future if it ends up being, like, a really cool place to just have community. And so really cool that you can see the church is focused on sharing with people about Jesus, but it's also focused on making an impact in those smaller ways, like, you know, making a park or, like, helping build houses or helping with special needs kids and making them feel valued and know their identity in Christ as kings and queens and sons and daughters. So really cool that the church is very involved in the community and makes an impact. And yeah, like, even just on the word of reaping what you sow, like, they were talking about even like building this Pewaukee campus off of their main campus. Like, you know, when they first started the Pewaukee campus 7 years ago, it was a lot smaller, but now it's grown, like, to new heights of attendance, new heights of baptisms, new heights of seeing God's work and people encountering him just from their faithfulness, like, to really pray into it and make it possible for God to move. So really awesome, encouraging to see this entire day at RiverGlen Church, the Pewaukee campus. So that's what we got for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another day of the Celebrate Church Tour. And yeah, this is the last one of June. So after this, we're on the back half of 2025. It's crazy. Half the year is through. We've been to 28 churches. I have 32 left. So we're going to have to do a lot of double up weeks on the back half of the year, but I will do it. I have a lot in my document. I have a list of all the churches that have Saturday or Thursday services or, like, Sunday night services. So I can plan it accordingly and make sure that I get them all, the 60 that I want to hit. So So we'll be keeping strong. We got a lot left in store, and we might not even be in Wisconsin for all of these churches. There might just be a little bit of a surprise trip coming up soon too. But that is something that I will show or talk about in the future if it becomes a thing. If it doesn't become a thing, then just get excited for a lot more Waukesha here in 2025, guys. And otherwise, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, stay in awe and wonder.